You wanna guess the color of my underwear. You wanna know what I got going.
Hello, my darlings. Welcome back to Front Row, Season 2 with Audrey Charlyes. This week, we will get into Paris Haute Couture Week, which always feels like stepping into a dream while logic politely waits outside. Feathers, corsets, embroidery, theatrics, and houses reminding us, sometimes desperately, why couture still matters in 2026. This season felt particularly charged because several creative directors were presenting the first couture collections, and you could sense the tension between legacy and personal voice in almost every show. Some houses soar with confidence, others were searching for direction, and that contrast made the week fascinating. Couture, at its core, is still about emotion, and Paris, my love, gave us plenty of it. Let's start with Schiaparelli. My love, they didn't present clothes. They presented presence. The silhouette was sculptural, the details unapologetically bold, and every look felt like it belonged in a museum rather than a wardrobe. There was a rebellious confidence in the collection, as if the house no longer feels the need to please anyone. This was couture as art form, couture as attitude, couture as spectacle without ever slipping into costume. I freaking love it. I love it, love it, love it. No hesitation. Shows like Schiaparelli remind us that couture is not supposed to be practical. It's supposed to be emotional. It's the only place in fashion where exaggeration is not only allowed, it's expected. And that's why the rest of the week felt so interesting, because not every house chose that route. Dior was Jonathan Anderson's first couture show. His debut for Dior felt like a designer walking through a magnificent garden, sometimes pausing to admire the flowers and sometimes getting a little lost in them. Some pieces were poetic, emotional, and beautifully constructed, reminders of why Dior's ateliers are sacred spaces. Others felt slightly overthought, as if the desire to say something new momentarily overshadowed clarity. Not being shady. But that is the beauty of couture debut. It is searching, exploring, being human. I was a bit confused, but not in the bad way, but in the most elegant kind of way. What fascinates me about couture debut is that you can literally watch a designer think on the runway. You can see the ideas forming, the risk being tested, the house being negotiated in real time. Let's get into Chanel, Mathieu Blazy's first couture show. He approached Chanel like an editor revisiting an iconic manuscript. The tweeds, the silhouettes, the code were all there, but gently pushed into a new rhythm. It did not feel nostalgic, no. It felt like restoration with intention. Some will adore this direction, others will resist it. And I find myself in the middle, still waiting for that unforgettable piece that defines an era. Intelligent, respectful, and quietly daring. And then, you have houses that don't need to negotiate anything. They simply do what they do best and remind you why couture has traditions for a reason. George Hobeika, he reminded everyone what traditional couture glamour looks like when executed flawlessly. regal silhouettes, exquisite embroidery, and unapologetic elegance define the collection. There is reassurance in Obeka's work. He does not try to reinvent couture, he just perfects it. These are gowns made for red carpet, galas, and grand entrance, timeless fabulousness delivered with precision. And then there comes Robert Wood. He offered one of the strongest statements of the week, with architectural precision and razor-sharp structure. The garments felt mathematical in construction, yet deeply emotional in impact. There were no excess, no unnecessary drama, just control, disciplined couture. This is fashion for those who appreciate lines, form, and technical mastery. One of the best collections this season. This is where couture gets exciting. When younger designers enter the conversation and you suddenly feel the future knocking on the door of these historic salons. Miss Sohi, she designs couture like royal armor for modern women. The silhouettes were dramatic, almost historical in proportion, yet undeniably contemporary in attitude. A baroque richness ran through the collection, making each piece feel ceremonial and powerful. She represents a younger generation of couture that understand exaggeration as storytelling. Who's speaking? Couture with youth, presence, and grandeur. Germanier brought something couture desperately needs: irreverence and joy. The beading, the color, the recycled material created pieces that felt rebellious yet meticulously crafted. This is couture does not take itself too seriously while still demanding attention. It proves that sustainability and spectacle can beautifully coexist. Couture with a wink, and then we return to the big legacy houses, where the weight of history is both a privilege and a pressure. Valentino with Alessandro Micheli. This was his first couture show. It felt delicate in intention and intelligent in execution. You could sense his respect for the house while quietly weaving in his own romantic language. He did not scream Michele, it whispered him. The presentation felt emotionally aware of the history, and it was stepping into very elegant and very promising. Elisa reminded us that couture can still make women breathtaking without intellectual explanation. Floating fabrics, shimmering embroidery, and silhouettes designed purely for admiration define the show. There was no conceptual puzzle, just beauty at the highest level. Gowns made for moments and memories. Classic sub-excellence. Stéphane Roland, he brought theatricality interpreted through couture discipline. Bold, graphic silhouette felt dramatic without losing elegance. It was almost like a circus translated into haute couture language, and that finally stayed in the mind long after show ended. Spectacle done right. At this point in the week, you realize couture is not language. It's multiple dialect spoken fluently by very different designers. George Chakra sits beautifully between classic glamour, modern sensuality. The crystal work, The silhouette, the confidence of the gowns made them perfect for grand entrance and unforgettable photograph. He does not chase trends. He perfect allure, couture for the spotlight. Armani Privé and Rahul Mishra. Some houses whisper instead of shouting, and in couture that can be just as powerful. Armani Privé offer quiet refinement, proving couture does not need noise to create impact. Rahul spoke through embroidery and storytelling, presenting garments that felt like living tapestries. Both reminded us that emotion lives in the details and craftsmanship. Let's suddenly go up north. After days of corset, trains, embroidery, and theatrical presentation, Copenhagen felt like opening a window. No fantasy, no performance, just clothes designed to live with people. And that contrast is what made this episode necessary. Copenhagen Fashion Week is becoming one of the most important weeks on the calendar. What struck me immediately was the intelligence of the silhouettes. Oversized coats that felt protective rather than decorative, layering that made sense for actual weather, winter whites, texture tailoring, and pieces designed for movement, not for posing at the end of the runway. This is fashion that understands real life. Brands like Opera Sport, Halls Wheeler, Baum and Berggarten, Rave Review, Skull Studio are not trying to compete with Parisian spectacle. They are doing something far more interesting. They are competing with relevance. Their clothes are designed for wardrobes, for streets, for everyday presence, and yet they still carry a strong creative identity. Copenhagen proves that minimalism is not boring when it's executed with personality. There is a quiet confidence in Scandinavian fashion that does not seek attention but earns it. You don't gasp at the runway, you nod in approval because you can immediately see yourself or someone you know wearing the pieces. And this is where Copenhagen becomes powerful. It reminds the industry that fashion is not only about fantasy, it is about function. I said function. Not only about performance, but about practicality, my loves. Practicality. I'm not being shady, it's just my opinion, okay? And in 2026, that balance is what makes a fashion week truly influential. Sometimes clarity is a true luxury. Again, clarity is a true luxury. Okay. What Paris and Copenhagen showed us is that fashion today lives between dream and reality. Paris gave us emotion, craftsmanship, and spectacle. Copenhagen gave us clarity, functionality, and modern cool. And somewhere between couture, fantasy, and Nordic realism lies the true heartbeat of contemporary style. We don't have to choose between the two. We need both, always. This was Front Row, Season 2, Episode 2 with Audrey Charlyes. This episode will be available on all your major listening platforms. It was a pleasure spending time with you, my love. See you next week for another fabulous, fully shady show. Love you.
Underwear, you wanna know what I got going on down there? Is it pretty in pink or see?